So, ladies and gentlemen, a couple of days ago, I did a video on the current state of game developers in the West in 2024, and it was dire. It was not a good picture. We see from pictures like this that content creators like Asmongold are making fun of these Western game developers that are going outside and screaming at the sky to protest what's going on in the gaming industry that they don't like. However, this is a distraction, one that I myself fell victim to, because it's so easy. You see these people outside, they look weird, they sound weird. What are they doing? Oh, we're yelling to make change. So, you're basically an outdoor therapy session. Asmongold dunked on it. I dunked on it. Most people dunked on it because it was embarrassing, but it is a complete and total distraction, and I should be better at that by now. I've seen enough of this to know that it is an entire distraction. Asmongold, in his video, proves my point by saying, oh, this is only like 60 people. This is a very small percentage of the overall game development industry. This is a very small number of people. Look at these fringe weirdos. But Asmon, what you don't understand is that these fringe weirdos are reflective of the entire industry, and I'll show you. Because Asmon, you covered this related to GDC, but you didn't watch any of the content from GDC itself. The actual event, the panels. This is crucially important that you understand this. That event that they were at, there were 55 talks on diversity and gender, inclusive quote-unquote game design, gender gap, Afrofuturism, Afrofantasy. I don't think they're talking about Afro Samurai, by the way, which I thought was an amazing show. LGBTQAS plus. Wait, LGBTQAS? What is the AS? God, the name is changing. I thought it was LGBTQIA. Oh, man. They just keep changing it. Debate. Cancellations. So, there's a panel, Asmongold, there's a panel at this event to teach game developers how to respond in the appropriate, woke, left-wing approved way at this event, at this game developers conference. And who do you think put on the cancellation event? Feminist Frequency. I'm not kidding. Feminist Frequency. We're going to go over it. And Control of Talks Communities. 15% of the show. That is madness. That is a cancer that is metastasized. That is not normal. 15% of that show. 55 different talks. And I'm going to play a little bit from Rev Says Desu's video. It's worse than even these listed out. Way worse. Let's take a look at some of the panels, some of the slideshows that we see, and maybe you can't start to understand why I am so critical of people like Asmongold who touch this topic on the periphery, on the surface, but don't understand how deep it goes. This isn't some isolated incident of a bunch of rogue people going into business for themselves. This is an industry-wide issue that has a depressingly large amount of these creepy, psychopathic, yes, left-wing, woke individuals that are doing this all as this sort of group therapy session, dumping their garbage into gaming. Let's take a look.
Seminars throughout this entire event, and as this user points out, There are about 55 talks on diversity and gender in this GDC 2024. Inclusive design, gender gap, Afrofuturism, Afrofantasy, LGBTQAS plus debates, cancellations, and control of toxic communities. Yeah, only 15% of the conference is focused, or 15% of this conference is focused on these sorts of things. And let's see some of these very brave conferences that they're having. Oh boy, Marxism is great for a designer. Literal communist sympathizers on.
It's worse than just sympathizing. These are actual communists, Marxists, that are putting out this propaganda into game development conversations. So again, you start to see why I'm so critical of Asmongold. While I am so appreciative of him talking about this, you have no idea. He's one of the largest content creators in the world. It would be nothing for him to ignore all of this, like a lot of his compatriots. Do you think that Moist Critical has the balls to do a video on this, to talk about Marxism and gaming at one of these events? Absolutely fucking not. That guy's a coward. A lot of those people are cowards. They're not going to address this. This to them is like Voldemort. You don't even talk about it. You don't look at it. Like, if something comes along that's so just egregiously woke that you can talk about it on a surface level, sure, fine. Hey, man, yeah, this game is bad. This thing is bad. But this is so much worse than you can imagine. There are panels filled with this sort of rhetoric. And by the way, this isn't even the worst example that he pulls up. So brace yourself.
On full display. Who would have guessed the woke developers would support Marxism? And there's other weird lessons here, but what about this one? End white gender able-bodied man as the default.
I mean, what more even really needs to be said? This is what is being promoted in game development. Now, you can go to a panel about, how do I make a game? Like, what's the core components to making a game? Sure. But when you get down to the story, the narrative, the cultural impact, when you get down to all of the things that are the core of game development in the West in 2024, this is at the beating heart. This type of propaganda, and by the way, if you take this advice, your game is going to fail. And it's not just going to fail with straight white men. It's going to fail with everyone. Because I'll tell you this. Straight white men going to save the princess and slay the dragon is the bedrock foundation for a lot of stories. In fact, most stories, most fairy tales. But what these people want to do is say, no, we're going to do away with that, and we're going to deconstruct that. And so the main character is going to be like the main character from Validate. It's going to be an overweight woman of color who has a disability, who looks gross, who's physically revolting, definitely overweight. She's going to be a character that is appealing to absolutely no one, because that is the most important thing, is to send the message that no, this is actually okay when it's not. And it's not just not okay because I say so, it's not okay because people don't want to pay their money for that. So if you're in a job where it is your duty to create an experience that audiences are going to like and want to pay for the benefit of you, your team, the franchise, the IP, the company that's sponsoring you, investors, you have a fiduciary duty to make the best game that you can that's going to bring in as many eyeballs and make as much money as possible in an ethical way. And I say in an ethical way because I don't usually like microtransactions. I make an exception for Helldivers too, but for the most part, I think that they're egregious. As simply put, I don't like them. So, when you have a company that has this as its tenet, or a design team, or even an individual person, you have tainted the entire process beyond repair. If anyone shares an idea like this, my advice is get him out. Get him out. Don't wait another moment. Call security. You can mail them their things. Grab that person and get him out. Because they are a cancer that will drain the life from your business. This is a racist, sexist, hideous ideology from the most stupid and the most profane and the most debased human beings to ever exist. And so I look at this, and this is being received by people.
Great. I'm sure gamers will really appreciate this weird, hyper-focused, specific complaint you have. Here's another one pointed out here. Cancel Pigs are also running a class tomorrow at GDC where you can learn to apologize better after.
Never underestimate the power of kindness. But of course,
After they are done canceling you. Of course, it's run by Feminist Frequency, one of the main players of Gamergate going all the way back to 2014. And you can see, so you've been canceled. Now what? Basically, this is set up for people who are getting canceled, right? Who have caused damage and have been called problematic and abandoned by their colleagues and friends. How can you fix this? Well, this intended audience is for anyone who has hurt others and wants to prevent it from happening again. Anyone worried about unintentionally harming others, anyone who has faced a call out and wants to make things right, or anyone who is interested in supporting people they care about who have done harmful things. I wonder if they're going to bring some of the people from Kotaku and Sweet Baby Inc. who have made disparaging remarks about other people based on the color of their skin. I wonder if they're going to get included in this intended audience. Unfortunately, I think because it's ran by the Feminist Frequency, I don't think they're going to consider what they did wrong, even though they've been called out rightfully by literally thousands of people. But moving forward, this is the cherry on top. This is what I've been hyping up this entire video. This is the...
Yeah, I definitely recommend you go watch Rev's video. It's called Woke Games Journalists Finally Reap What They've Sowed. There you go. You can see the name right there. So, yeah, I mean, there is a whole lot more to this than just a bunch of crazy left-wing people screaming in the middle of the street or screaming in the middle of a grassy field. We start to see the troubling elements that are ingrained in a lot of these shows. Now, those were but a few examples, but you saw how many talks there were about this type of material. And so you're not crazy if you think that that's wrong. That not one of those speeches, not one of those panels about the future of game development should be about social justice in any way, shape, matter, or form. Not one of those slides should say, we hate straight white men and we want to replace them. Not one. Every one of those should be helping people to get better at the craft of creating games that people will want. And here's the reality. People don't really care so much if a character is white. They don't really care if the character is white. What they want is authenticity. So if I play a game set in feudal Japan as a samurai, I don't want to play as a black man. I don't want to play as a Native American samurai. Oh, one time, back 1,000 years ago, there was a samurai and he was Native American. Maybe. Maybe there was a black disabled lesbian samurai who showed all the other samurai how it's really done. Maybe. I don't want to play as that. It sounds boring to me. You'd probably put her in a wheelchair and find some way to screw it up. Yeah, I mean, what people want is authenticity. I'll give you another example. If you were to make a game about ancient Egypt. Kind of like, Assassin's Creed, whatever, number 24601. Like Assassin's Creed Origin. I want to play as somebody Egyptian. If I'm playing a medieval fantasy game, I want to play as a white man. Now, of course, that changes if it's like Skyrim and you have different interesting cool races. Like lizard people or like the Tauren in World of Warcraft. If you've got like interesting stuff, but as a generic soldier, I want to be a human. I want to be tall. I want to be a man. Whether I'm blonde with blue eyes or brown hair or brown eyes or black hair with green eyes, that's the variation I want to play. What I don't want is to load into a game and go, okay, fantasy time. And the default character is some fat, unattractive, uninteresting gender studies degree major. Some self-insert. And I'm sitting there looking at this repulsive creature and I'm questioning why I bought this game, what I'm doing with my life. No, I just want a nice fantasy. Make the character as generic as you want. Rise tarnished. My point is, there's a lot of problem in Western gaming. And I think that it is our duty as people who love gaming and want to pass it on to the next generation to call it out. There are a lot of problems with the current gaming industry. There's a lot of problems with current game journalism. We're going to be talking about that next. But I want you to understand that you're not the crazy one for noticing this. You're not the crazy one for continuing to point this out. And in the unlikely event that Asmongold ever watches a video like mine, I hope that he can take it in the way that it was intended. Where I'm critical of him only because I don't think that he is willing to address this as honestly and openly as I think it deserves. Because when you've got panels with slideshows saying, oh, it's great to be a Marxist if you're a game designer. If you've got panels run by feminist frequency about, oh, if we cancel you, here's how you get out of it. Now, ironically, if you do any of what they say, they're just going to demand that you do more and more and more and more and more and more and more. They'll never let up. They'll never forgive you. Because we're not dealing with, regular functioning, decent human beings. We're dealing with monsters that seek validation for their miserable, worthless, terrible lives through tearing other people down. Now, there's a chance that they'll tear you down and then move on. And you may think, oh, I'm back in the good graces. They will turn on you like that. So, I wanted to do this video to highlight the fact that this is a problem. I see it. I notice it. I'm calling it out. It's not just something as simple as people screaming in the field. It's a much, much deeper problem. And it is embedded in the game development industry. It's at these shows. It's at the award shows. It's the type of speeches that they give. The type of rhetoric that is acceptable. It is a left-wing, dogmatic cult of fanatical losers that should be called out at every opportunity because these are the most heinously evil, wicked, despicable human beings I've ever seen. Ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.